Hey everyone, how's everybody doing tonight? So good to see you. I've missed all of you. My voice is still not 100%, so I'm going to really take it easy tonight on it. I won't be on as long as normal, but I wanted to make sure that all of you can hear me okay, because I am going to be speaking lower, or some more soft, I guess I should say, just to kind of give my voice, a little bit of a break. But for those of you that don't know, I was down all week with laryngitis. I didn't have a voice at all for about 5 days, and it came back, and it goes in and out still. So that's kind of what's been happening with me. And like I said, I really missed you guys a lot. It was driving me crazy. I really wanted to go live last night, but my voice was just still not there. So I was like, well, give it another day. So here we are. So hi, CJK. So nice to see you. Always nice to have you here. Hey, Tech Death. Good to have you as well. Love it when my mods are here. Hey, JW28. Welcome. Hey, John. So nice to see you. Hey, Miss Thang. How are you doing tonight? Good to see you here. Hey, Digital. Good to see you. Same. Yeah, wasn't that music awesome? I hate having to turn it off. I love listening to Tech Death play. So, hey, Cold Truth. How are you? Welcome. Hey, Digital. Good to see you again. Melodramatic Monday. Thank you. I hope so too. My voice is what's at it now. The rest of everything, I still have a cough, but I did not have COVID. So that was one good thing about it. But yeah, it's kind of weird. So, hey, 1L Michelle. So good to see you. And I'm glad that I'm back as well. I really did miss you all. I really missed you. So tonight, what I was going to do, I have a couple of things that we're going to talk about and try to get into and unpack some stuff, but I wanted to update everyone on the Kristin Smart case really quickly. We did cover her. Hey, Olivia. Good to see you, my dear. We did cover her a few weeks back. We started covering the case, and her murder trial actually started in Monterey County Superior Court on May 31st. And they decided that Ruben Flores and Paul Flores would not receive a fair trial, most likely, in San Luis Obispo County. So they moved the trial to Monterey County. Paul, as everyone may recall, is accused of murdering Kristin Smart. She was 19 years old. She was a freshman at Cal Poly University in San Luis Obispo back in 1996. She went to an off-campus party right before Memorial Day weekend in May of 96. And while she was at this party, they believe that she was given a drug of some kind in a drink that made her extremely incoherent, could hardly stand up, and she appeared intoxicated. Hey, DMJ, so good to see you. And on the walk home, she's just up and disappeared. And Paul Flores is who walked her supposedly to her dorm and deposited her safely. But he has been charged with murder. They believe that he, in the attempted rape, killed her. And his father helped dispose of the body. The two men were arrested for her murder in April of 2021. In August of 2021, they decided that they would have a change of venue in the trial because they did not believe that they would get a fair trial. And that was argued. And it didn't actually happen until April, right before the trial was supposed to begin, is when they actually granted the change of venue. So what we know now is they are going to start trying to get the jury set. The preliminary hearing and pretrial conferences are going on as we speak. They said that there's been 2 orders that have been requested in the case. They were filed on May 16th by the prosecution, but the documents are filed under seal and it's unclear what they pertain to. But there were 2 orders, a request and an affidavit that were filed in the case. So it's not clear whether Paul and Ruben could see their trial pushed back due to the change of venue. But for what we know right now, it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's going to get started. The Monterey County judge is Jennifer O'Keefe, and she is going to be the person overseeing Kristin's case. And that was because the San Luis Obispo Superior Court judge said they were unable to travel. So the case had been originally assigned to Monterey County Superior Court Judge Rafael Vasquez on April 25th of this year, but the prosecution filed a challenge to that assignment, claiming that Vasquez could not provide a fair and impartial trial, according to court documents that they reviewed by the Tribune. The documents don't state why he could not provide a fair trial. And then that is when O'Keefe was assigned to the case. And we didn't learn of any of this until May 4th. Monterey County Superior Court officials told the Tribune that the lag in releasing the public information occurred because it took a lot of time to go through all of the court documents. And they had to be careful of what information is being released because there is a gag order on this case. Now, the court documents for the murder trial are only available to be viewed at the courthouse in Salinas, California. Members of the public, including the media, cannot receive documents electronically, even through a public records request, the Monterey County Superior Court officials have said. To view any document, a person has to travel to Salinas or send a public records request with a money order with the estimated cost by mail. Which I found really interesting, something that I really didn't realize that they could do, but I think they're really trying to keep a handle on this trial, which is a good thing. And I think that that's one reason why that they're making people go there in person. Multimedia organizations, including the Tribune, have filed media requests to cover this trial. And as of Tuesday afternoon, all requests remained under review by the judge. And the judge has since decided that this case will not be covered by court TV or any TV broadcasting. There will be multimedia organizations allowed in the courtroom, but they will have to be there and only are allowed to take notes. They cannot video record or videotape anything. There is no live streaming, as I've previously said. So all of you who are aware of Christopher Lambert, who did the My Own Backyard podcast that really broke this case open, Chris is going to be in the courtroom every day. He actually, no, this isn't California, Toy. He actually moved or is moving to Salinas. He will be living there until the until the trial is over, and they believe it will last through the end of October. So he's going to be living there and be in court every day taking notes, and once a week he's going to compile all of that into a special edition of his podcast. So I highly recommend everyone, if you're following the case, to make sure that you listen to that, because I think that that's going to be really good. And he's so good at what he does. He'll definitely give us a firsthand account of what's happening in that courtroom. So that's what's going on right now. And my hat goes off to Chris Lambert, because, he is just a podcaster out there who really broke her case open. So it gives me hope when there are people out there like him. He's chose not to sell his story to anyone. HBO has tried to get it. There's been a couple of other movie makers that have reached out to him that want to make a movie about it, and he has refused. He is doing this for the Smart family and for Kristin. He is not doing this to make money or to become famous, even though he has. His podcast was #1 on all podcasts all over the world for weeks and weeks and weeks. So if you haven't heard or listened to My Own Backyard, I really, really highly suggest you guys go out and find out about Kristin. You can go back and watch my live that I did on her if you're not familiar with her case. It's extremely tragic. 25 years this family has waited for a resolution on what happened to their daughter. They still don't have Kristin's body. And for Chris Lambert, that is where it's at. He wants to find her. He wants to bring Kristin home. And they do believe that she was buried under Ruben's house, under the deck in the backyard, for at least a number of years, and has since been moved. There is just a lot about that case that we could just sit and discuss for a long, long time. But I wanted to bring you guys up to date on what was happening with her, because while I was down with my voice, I did a lot of reading, and a lot of stuff was happening. I also did quite a bit of investigating on my own and trying to turn up some things that I was learning on Flora. So we are going to be talking about Flora tonight again. We're also going to be talking, of course, about Delphi. And I also wanted to bring to everyone's attention some of the quite alarming things that I found out about some of the suspicious fires that have gone on in the area surrounding Delphi, Flora, and some of the outlying communities and counties. It's quite alarming, actually. There has been a number of female children killed in suspicious fires. And it leads me to wonder if we have a possible serial arsonist at work here. And I don't know why people aren't talking more about it. Maybe they just haven't investigated it. I don't know. But there is some really strange happenings going on. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, I'm sure that a lot of you have heard about this already, because I do think I think there's actually been some stuff put out on YouTube about it already. I had a couple of emails sent to me by a couple of my subscribers asking me to look into this when it happened, like back in March. And I didn't get to it. I kind of skimmed over it and didn't really think a whole lot of what she was telling me, because there was so much going on at that time with Delphi and the dropping of all of the Kagan Klein stuff. So I was all wrapped up into that when I really should have been paying attention to this, because I really think this is important. Hey, Jamie, thanks for coming. It's good to see you here. Hey, Alicia, so good to have you. I really wonder, Alicia, I don't know who Daniel is, but I will tell you, I am really beginning to think that there is a serial arsonist at work in and around this area of Indiana. And it's really suspicious. With that, I'm going to give a shout out first thing. Hold on one second, because I got to make sure I find it first. I want to be able to give you guys I'm going to post it here in the comments for you. I'm posting a Reddit sub that has been recently started, and it's for Flora investigation, the Flora Fires, and it's called the Flora 4. And I'm really impressed with the person who has started this Reddit sub. It's really well done so far. There's a lot of information to be found here. So I definitely want to give them a huge shout out. Please go, if you are a person who utilizes Reddit, make sure you check it out and subscribe and give them all of the love that you can, because obviously we know the girls don't get enough publicity and they need more. But we're going to go over some of the information that they have on this sub tonight, because I found it compelling with what's going on with Flora. So I do want to talk about that a little bit, if I can get my computer to work. But anyway, let's go back to one of the cases that I was talking about. Stephanie Thompson is an Indiana State Police sergeant, and she was killed in a house fire with her 17-year-old daughter, Maya, in Monticello, Indiana on February 17th, 2022. 3 days after the anniversary, the 5-year anniversary of Abby and Libby. I'm just going to note that, because that was 3 days after Doug Carter's press interview, where he speaks directly to the killer. Now, I'm not saying that that is necessarily tied to anything, but I do think it's worth noting. I think it's definitely worth noting that 3 days after the 5th year anniversary of Abby and Libby's death, we have a major house fire in Monticello, Indiana, which is very, very close to Delphi. And it's right after Doug Carter comes out and speaks directly to Bridge Guy, the killer. Stephanie Thompson was a polygrapher for the Indiana State Police. She also worked in forensics and crime scenes, and she had a really long career. 23 years. She was a veteran of the Indiana State Police. She also is married to a circuit judge. Now, knowing that, the fact that she was an officer with the Indiana State Police and her husband's a judge, that could point to all different kinds of people wanting to hurt them, obviously. And that's one of the reasons why the ATF, I believe, was brought in to this case. But I'm not sure a lot of people around Delphi the Delphi case and the Delphi murders are aware of this and what happened. So the White County coroner, because it happened in White County, positively identified the 2 bodies that were found in the burned out home as Maya and her mother. The father was out of town. Sorry, guys, but I will be drinking a lot tonight, so bear with me if I stop talking. I apologize. So her husband was out of town at a conference, and her oldest daughter was a student, or is a student, at Purdue and University. And so she was living off campus. She was living there, she was not at home. So the only 2 that were home were Maya and Stephanie. Now, Stephanie was also the volleyball coach at the local high school that her daughter attended, and her daughter was an avid swimmer. In fact, just days before her death, she had swam in state competition. So she was a swimmer. And she was, as I said, she was 17 years old. Such a tragedy. So Stephanie and her daughter were actually laid to rest together in a single white coffin. There is pictures and photographs online they held it at the local high school. They had the coffin in the center of the gym, and people were able to walk around it and pay their respects. Jason Thompson is the White County Circuit Judge, and that is Stephanie's husband and the father to Maya. And he does survive along with Ayanna, who is their oldest daughter. Behind the family, there was a podium that displayed a Twin Lakes Senior High School varsity jacket featuring the number 23, and that is the year that Maya would have graduated. She was a junior in high school. And right beneath Maya's jacket sat Stephanie's Indiana State Police State Trooper's hat. And I thought that was, when you see those photographs, they are so, it's just compelling and so sad. There were hundreds of notes that had been stuck on the coffin, and these had been written by those who came to the visitation, which I thought was a really neat way for people to pay their respects to both the mother and the daughter, because Stephanie had such a huge presence at the high school as the fact that she was a coach there. Now, granted, this happened back in February, and it wasn't until April the 5th when the cause of death was released, and the White County Coroner's Office confirmed to News 18 that the cause of death for both victims of the fire was smoke inhalation. And they were both found by crews working on the fire that was burning their home on February 17th. This house was amazing. It was a really large home, beautiful, out in the country, sort of. I mean, it was on the edge of town. It had lots of trees around it. It was just a beautiful home, and it was completely burnt to the ground. This fire was so hot and burned so quickly that this house was destroyed, and the only thing that was left standing, I believe, was the brick foundation around the outside edge of the house and the brick fireplace stack. So that kind of tells you right there how hot it was. News 18 covered the fire, and they were told by a number of agencies that a news release was sent out with the cause of death was determined. However, News 18 never received such release. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. Hey, Jess Pam, so nice to have you here. And thank you. It is there are so many, and I really do believe that there's a serial arsonist at work in this area. And for whatever reason, nobody's paying attention to that. Just before 2 a.m., the White County Sheriff's Office received a report of a house fire at 3248 North Lakeshore Drive in Monticello. Monticello Police Department and multiple fire departments responded to the scene and located the fully engulfed residence. Once the fire was extinguished, it was determined that there were two victims inside, and that turned out to be Stephanie and Maya. And their remains This remains an active investigation by the Indiana State Police and the Indiana Fire Marshal. At this time, the cause of the fire nor the cause of death could be determined, however. 5 fire departments responded to this call for this house. On March the 11th, the ATF joins the investigation. And 13 News reported that special agents are investigating the February 17th fire that killed mother and daughter. Maya was a high school swimming star and received and served as team captain. She also played tennis. And it's just an unbelievable loss because of the type of people they were, said the White County Sheriff Bill Brooks. Being in the positions they were, public, all their careers, it just takes a toll. The public knows who they are, and they know the children, so it is hard for our entire community. Yes, Pam, most certainly. You can definitely email me. Anybody can email me. Stephanie was the former volleyball coach of Twin Lakes High School. And Stephanie worked out of the Lafayette district, which is also the district that is handling the Delphi murder investigation. So I wanted to make sure that we understood that. Now, hold on one second, because I have some more information about some fires that I need to talk. We want to talk about, and I got to find them where I wrote it down. Sorry, guys. My notebooks are a mess today. Where are we? Because there is a fire that happened in Rossville that I want to talk about. And I gotta find it. Hold on, give me one moment. There it is. So Monticello is just 10 minutes north of Delphi in White County. On January 29th of 2022, Noah Rainey and a fellow deputy jailer were killed when their vehicles struck a pole during an overnight pursuit. Such a short amount of time for 3 law enforcement officers to die in 2 separate incidents, and both being investigated as to what happened and why. So that's something else that I thought we should put a check mark to and kind of keep in our minds, because there's just so many weird things happening in this county again. On January 14th, 2022, another overnight fire claimed the lives of a 5-year-old girl and her 12-year-old sister. Their baby sister survived with both of the parents, who escaped with her. This fire is also being investigated by the Indiana Fire Marshal. This fire was in Rossville, just 15 minutes from Flora and Delphi in Clinton County. The call came in at 2:26 a.m. So let's notice right off the bat, these fires are being committed about the same time in the middle of the night, which I thought was quite interesting. Hey, Sleuth, good to see you. I agree, John. The suspicious death rate in this area is just way above the norm. There's so many things that just don't Makes sense. So the call came in at 2:26 a.m. for a residence fire in a rural area on North County Road 700. That's in between Frankfort and Rossville. We had heavy fire showing from the rear of the home. It took us about 20 to 25 minutes to get the fire knocked down, said Rossville Fire Chief Aaron Fife. Once inside, they were able to find the bodies of two children, 12-year-old Shea Hyde and her 5-year-old sister, Amelia, who perished. The family and a sheriff's deputy tried to go inside while the house was burning, and they were pushed back out. It was too hot. They also lost 2 of their beloved pets and all of their possessions in this fire. So there we have it, another fire under suspicion. We still don't know the cause. We still don't know what's happening. And there's 2 more children that have died in this area. So that's right now a total of 9 children that have lost their lives in fires since the Flora fire in 2016 that I've found. And I know there's more. And I just think that there is some really weird stuff that I found. And it's kind of going to be a little bit like it was the last time, all over the place here. But I'm just going to go with what I've got. And we can talk about it. Now, the Carroll County Comment lists the minutes of the board and county commission meetings. They always do, including all hirings and firings, resignations of school and local athletic employees and volunteers. That's how they do it. In this small Carroll County area, that's how they've chosen to do it. They list it in their county paper. Much of the 2016 and 2017, however, is missing. There are no minutes. But some notes remain, and some are extremely interesting to be talked about. On March 5th, 2018, a school board member named Dave Lambert stated he wants all coaches, before they are involved with any event, to pass background checks. We wouldn't have incidents that we've had in the past if we would have done this, he said. What incidents are they talking about? What incidents with coaches are they speaking of? What background checks are they not doing on their coaches or volunteers that are working with their kids? This was really concerning to me. On June 6, 2018, Krista Watson, a local Delphi business owner, penned in the Carroll County Comment a letter to the editor called "To the Residents of Delphi," which includes the following statement: County commissioners, county council, and Delphi city leaders, do better background checks on people before you hire them or fund their pet projects. Something is smelling in Delphi, ladies and gentlemen. Something does not sit right with me. I am just like, what is going on in this town? And this may have absolutely nothing to do with the murders of Abby and Libby, but I'm here to tell you something stinks. And even if it doesn't, this stuff is important that's happening. And there's something going on that we need to know what it's going to be, or where it stems from, and who's going to be held accountable, and who's going to be the ones to look into it. Because to me, it just looks like nobody cares. We're talking about stuff that happened 5 and 6 years ago, and it's just like it's still a playing field of nut jobs. I mean, that's all the way I see it. Is where is the investigation? Where are these people that are supposed to be looking into all this stuff, and why do they just keep mounting up? We talk about stacks of paper when they were interviewing Kagan about how things just stack and stack and stack, and eventually you can't not look at it as something. Well, to me, that is exactly what's happening with the fires, with all these other things that are being brought forward by residents, business owners, and concerned citizens. October 3rd, 2018, the county board meeting minutes list the first reading of policy 3121, the criminal history information regarding expanding criminal history checks. This was later passed after a third reading. So they did finally figure it out in 2018 that they needed to expand their criminal history checks of who they were hiring at the school district. Now, I need to know, or whether it was also for their volunteer coaches that coached over the summer or whatever programs they had. But I want to know what happened that caused this, because we've got at least 2 people that wrote articles asking them to do it. So there's something that happened. Whose child suffered at the hands of these people? Although these 3 fires are in 3 separate counties that I've talked about, they're all within a 10 to 15-minute drive from Delphi. Again, this is why when we talk about Bridge Guy being local, look how many counties that encompasses. 10 to 15 minutes to me is local. 10 to 15 minutes is local when you're talking rural area. I mean, it's local in a big city. It's local. So these towns are interconnected in all facets of life: school, work, family, church for some. These 3 counties have a total population of 76,700, with each county holding the same amount of people as a small city or a suburb. It seems odd to me to have this many fires in such a small area that are specifically killing young girls. It just bothers me. And then, of course, the extremely violent deaths of Abby and Libby are thrown in there on the trails, and that's 9 female children total that I found, and I know there's more. And now it may very well be an Indiana police sergeant may have been targeted, or her husband, who's a judge. In learning about the people of this community, the high school jocks grow up and become the youth coaches in the local clubs and in the schools for generations. Abby was a soccer player and a volleyball player who had recently added softball to her activity roster. Libby was active in soccer, swimming, volleyball, and softball. Kelsey was also active in swimming, and she also played softball. The coaches tend to stick with their sports bracket, but it's hard to tell who is coaching what sport at what school and in the youth organizations, as it seems the staff often overlap across the private teams and school teams. Something to be noted, I suppose. Now we have an ISP sergeant burned in her home, who also happens to be a volleyball coach and was active in local sports. Her daughter was a lettered swimmer who had just swam at the state competition days before her death. Is it possible that one or both of them knew something that cost them their lives? It's a question. Does someone with serious mental health issues have a serious problem with coaches in this town? Was she targeted as a member of the Indiana State Police Lafayette branch? Was it something that she did with evidence or in polygraphing that resulted in someone going to prison? Was it the fact that there were no male children living in the home? Her older daughter attends Purdue, as I said, as does Kelsey, and both are competitive swimmers. Is Doug Carter getting closer and closer and pissing people off? I mean, We have to look at that. I just don't get it. I mean, there's just so much that we just can't overlook it. That's all. I just don't think that there's any way that we can overlook what's happening out there. We need to start looking and encourage the public awareness into the fire fatalities and threats to public safety in and around these counties. There's a lot of information in the Reddit sub Flora 4. They keep telling us that it's a very active and very complicated investigation, but still there are no updates. Absolutely no updates to Flora. When the 5th year anniversary rolled around on November 21st, 2021, the news stations went to ISP and asked them to give an update on the Flora Fires, and they said there was no update to give. No update to give. Although they did say that they were actively working the case. I do think that people need to be vigilant. I do think they need to make sure that their home security systems are working, their smoke detectors are in their homes, are working, that they need to make sure that they try to protect themselves, because it is really hard sometimes to catch serial arsonists. It's one of the hardest things to prove. And it's not an easy thing. And the Indiana Department of Homeland Security is involved in this case and these cases. As I said, in Stephanie and Maya's case, the ATF was called in. And I know the ATF was called in because we have a judge and we have a police officer that was targeted. Oh, thank you, Michelle. You're so kind. We do need to think outside the box. We need to think about everything, even if it's painful. We really need to look at things, and it's hard in these cases. Sleuth says, Carter frustrates me when he talks about Flora because he uses the same talking points he uses with Delphi. Well, true, Sleuth, but he also blames the mom. Something about Doug Carter that I'm not happy with. He's made comments that she's not cooperating, and the family completely and vehemently denies that. And I don't believe it. And I'm not saying that Doug Carter is a bad person, because I think we all know that Doug Carter would do anything to find out who are behind some of these crimes. But I do wonder about these fatal fires and what it's going to take to wake people up to realize, yes, Pam, they did not. They had them, but they did not work. They were not working smoke detectors. There was one right outside the girls' bedroom. Had it been active and working, the girls would probably have made it out, because they would have heard it and they would have ran. They were the older sister was old enough at age 11 to get her other sisters out of there. So when you talk about Flora and we talk about the processing of the crime scene and the things that happened at Flora, there is a really good document on the Flora 4 Reddit sub that they've taken the time out. And part of it's redacted, which I'm glad that they took out things that they shouldn't have put out for the public. But it talks about how Robert Ives talks about the fire. It talks about Dennis Randall. and how he was the state fire marshal that was assigned to the Flora Fire case. And as we found out later, he was removed. He was derelict in his job. His son is the fire chief. That is problematic to me when you have all of this stuff going on. And, he assumed things that he should never have assumed before he ever investigated the fire. He was putting out information in the public domain that he should never have done. We have to face the facts that people and human beings, when we hear information, we're like sponges. We just soak it up. And a lot of times we just take it as fact. We don't even process it. We just, because we heard it, we believe it. And I know we've all heard, don't believe everything you hear, don't believe everything you read, and don't believe everything you see on television. Well, now we have the internet, and we know for sure that we can't believe everything that's there, right? And one of the things that came out in these documents that I found interesting was heat damage was present, particularly in the fixtures that held a fire alarm at the top of the stairs in the middle of the ceiling. The exterior portions of this fire alarm had melted, and the electronic board for the alarm now laid on the floor below the remaining melted plastic. The state fire marshal Randall pointed out that the contacts for the battery and that that no battery was present inside. So, yeah, there was absolutely it wasn't working. That smoke detector, had it been working, may have saved lives for sure. So you've got landlords who are not making sure, which it's their responsibility to make sure that they have those working things in rental property. It's not the property, it's not the person who's renting the property to make sure of that. It's the property owner. And remember, when I first talked about Flora, the property owners already have been known for suspicious fires. They've had a number of suspicious fires for properties that they own. And that in itself brings up a whole can of worms about insurance fraud. And I can't say, David, I understand where you're coming from on this. I do. I understand why you're saying this, and it's possible. But everything in my heart of hearts and stomachs tells me that he is not corrupt, that he means well. So I thought that this was interesting. The staircase is in or near the kitchen of this house. It's clear the kitchen or mudroom was the point of origin, which we've already been told, where the little girls were the little girls targeted, considering their room was directly above the kitchen or the mudroom. I understand in emergencies, people may not have time to really think before acting. However, who in their right mind would see a fire and call the property owner before calling 911 first? They waited 6 whole minutes after calling the landlord before they called 911. I've been in a similar situation at my apartments before, and I called 911 first, then I called the apartments. 2 officers who are volunteer firefighters thought it would be a good idea to bust out all the windows on the bottom floor when the mother told them the girls were upstairs. Even I know that breaking said windows would only vent the flames along, allowing them to get bigger and hotter. Whenever you give oxygen to a fire, it's not a good thing. No mother is going to put their 4 daughters to sleep, shut off all the lights, but forget the back door is wide open. The back door was not wide open. the back door's lock was broken, and she had reported it 2 weeks before. 2 weeks, 14 days before, she reported that the lock on her back door was not working. The door was not wide open. Remember, it was November. She would have felt the cold air blowing in. The neighbors report waking up around 2:45, just about 40 minutes before the first call was placed. What woke them up? Did they hear something or see something? That's never been clarified. Also, why were the little girl's iPhone and iPad taken into evidence? It doesn't appear that anything else personal was taken from the home. So why were the little girl's electronics taken? Was something on the electronics incriminating? So I don't know if iPhones and iPads were taken in this case. This is somebody claiming to have this information. There's nothing out there that law enforcement has told us as to what was taken into evidence from this crime scene. So there's no way of us knowing that. But it's just really, really hard for me to think about some of these things. And what was it that woke up the neighbors? What was it that they heard? And if you open, and like I said, if you vent all of those windows, as anybody that doesn't even have a basic knowledge of fire knows that fire needs oxygen to survive. If you deplete its oxygen, a fire will die. So that makes no sense to me. Absolutely no sense, especially when you know you still have 4 children in the home. It's just, it's just mind-boggling to me. I just don't understand, and I'm sure that you guys feel the same way. Yeah, I don't know, Alicia. I don't get it. I mean, I know that I've heard rumors, and I hate to talk about rumors because I like to keep things fact-based, as you guys know. But there's a rumor out there that the 11-year-old may have had something happen to her by somebody, in a bad way, something that shouldn't have been happening, or whatever. And if that's the case, was she being also targeted by some of these CSAM crazy people? I mean, that's possible. And it's just, you just never know what might be going on with this, because you've got so many different scenarios that it could have been. I hate to think that somebody would do that to a child to keep them from talking, but we know that that's highly possible because we've all thought about that with the Delphi murder situation, with Abby and Libby, that may have been what happened to them as well. So again, anything's possible. So yeah, Karina, I do have super chat on my channel, and super stickers, and it's up to anyone who wants to support my channel. I don't push them. That's not what I'm here for, and that's not what I'm about. And no, my videos are not monetized. So I think we have to look at everything, Alicia, when we're looking and talking about what could possibly be the reason for these. If it's a serial arsonist, guess what? Does anybody out there know who the most likely candidates are for serial arson? Does anybody have any ideas? Because I can give you some information on that here quickly, pretty soon. Firemen. Hilarious, Tech Death. Go catch your pig. Go catch your pig. Hang on a second. I'm looking for something here. Firemen, first responders, police officers. Yes, firefighters. Exactly. Those are the people who usually are going to be your serial arsonists. So, what is arson? It's a crime at common law, originally defined as the malicious burning of the dwelling of another, depending upon the jurisdiction, the international setting fire to a building, or else the intentional setting fire to a building where people live. Pyromania is a medical definition, and it is a type of impulse control disorder that is characterized by being unable to resist starting fires. People with pyromania know that setting fires is harmful, but setting fires is the only way they can relieve their built-up tension, anxiety, or arousal. Yes, pyromaniacs set fires because they get sexually aroused by it. Although most arsonists set only one fire and are unaware of investigative techniques which can lead to their detection, fire investigators must increasingly be aware of the unique and unusual devices that are now being used to ignite fires and of the large dollar values of losses involved. Firebombs is a bomb that causes destruction by starting a fire rather than exploding. Incendiary weapons, incendiary devices, incendiary munitions, or incendiary bombs are weapons designed to start fires or destroy sensitive equipment using fire that use materials such as napalm, thermite, magnesium powder, chlorine, trifluoride, or white phosphorus. Though colloquially often known as bombs, they are not explosives, but in fact are designed to slow the process of chemical reactions and use ignition rather than detonation to start or maintain the reaction. There is a lot of resources that we have at our disposal when you look at some of the fire statistics. And when we were looking, I was looking at some of the statistics that the Flora 4 have put together, because she's done a lot of, or he has done a lot of research into this. It doesn't look to be huge until you start getting into these counties surrounding Delphi. And then the incidents of these fires are crazy because they're happening so often, and there are so many deceased children. And so, yeah, these crimes may very, very well not at all be connected in any way, but there's something wrong. Something's causing this stuff to happen. And again, you know, it's really sad. Now, I know I saw earlier somebody was talking. Mel, was it you? Is Mel Cold Truth still here? Is Cold Truth still here in my chat? Does anybody know? Because I think she was talking about Logansport. Now, this is something that I found really interesting. And I did find it, and I can't remember what I did with the hey Mel, were you talking about the Logansport fire that killed the children of the Holder family, Brad Holder's cousins? Is that the fire you're speaking of? Because I found a fire in Logansport where children were killed, and it turns out that Levi Holder, which was Logan Holder's brother, and they are the sons of Brad Holder. Okay, so yeah, that's the one you're talking about. And it's their cousins that died in that fire. I thought that was really interesting that we've got a suspicious fire with children who passed away and perished in the Holder family. So in there. I mean, I thought that was very interesting. Mel, what did you think? What do you think about that? Because you've obviously looked at it as well. What are your thoughts? Alicia said maybe he couldn't get off anymore with the fire deaths and moved on to murder. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, it's, it really truly is. It may not tie into Delphi, Diana. There may be a serial arsonist and it doesn't tie into Delphi. But I think that there's a lot of questions that are out there that need to be answered. It may very well not tie into Delphi. Boy, that I did not know that, Alicia. So Kagan's stepbrother's mom died in a fire as well. Hey, yeah. Mel, do you want to call in and talk about it? You're welcome to. I'll give you the link. Do you want to call in? There you go, Mel. Follow that link if you want to call in, and you can we can talk about it and what you know about it, because that would be great. Because I think I'm not sure about that SD. I've heard that before, but Logan Holder was Abby's boyfriend. Oh, okay, Mel, no problem. No problem at all. So yeah, Logan was dating Abby. So there was there's a video out there that the Meow Zedong, who is the moderator for Flora 4, put out on their YouTube channel. I'm going to give you guys the link for it if you want to go watch it. Hold on. And what she does in this, or what they do in this, they compiled a lot of news coverage on fires in Carroll County and suspicious fires that share a similar pattern. Victims are children and young mothers, young children trapped inside. Origin of fire is unexplained. We've got the Flora victims with Kiana, Kiara, Cariel, and Kiani. And then the other cases are Sergeant Stephanie Thompson and Maya, Jason Whitelow Jr., age 1, and Catelia Ariano, age 5. We've got 3-month-old Marshall Height, Riley Height, age 1, Swayze Height, 3, and their 25-year-old mother, Brandy Vale. We have Katie Huddleston, age 10, and Joseph Huddleston, 43. Paige Ridner, 25, James Ridner, 15, Jordan Ridner, 13, Joshua Ridner, 12, Emily Ridner, 11, and Elizabeth Ridner, 10. Those people all died in fires. Then there's Miracle, age 6, Stephen, 5, and Wilma Gingerich, age 1. These are all within the past 5 years, and this list is not exhaustive. There are more than this. So go watch that video because, like I said, I'm just floored by the fires. And I just think that, we just need to be looking at it a little bit and talking about it. Hey, Lipsha, good to see you. Hey, Jennifer, it's so good to see you. I know you're on vacation. Oh, I'm so glad that you're having a good time. I'm glad you said hello. You poor thing, you've got to be exhausted. I hope the kids are having a good time. We love you. We miss you. Just Pam says, maybe this is the reason the FBI and U.S. Marshals are already in the area investigating all of this corruption in all of these counties. It's my understanding that the U.S. Marshals are the only ones can arrest law enforcement. That is the truth. That is the truth. Yes, David. We have the 911 call from Flora that has never been released. That is the truth. There is just so many possibilities around all of this. Thank you, Jennifer. My voice is still a little shaky, as you may be able to hear, but I am feeling better. So it was a rough week, a rough 10 days for sure. But I am feeling much better. Thank you. And we're going to miss you while you're gone. But I'm glad that you snuck in. I'm really happy to see you. But yeah, so I thought that was, pretty good information. And they just started up their subreddit on Reddit on Flora, and it just makes me happy to see somebody else out there who wants to put Flora out there and start talking about it. And I think in doing so, we can talk about and touch on some of these other suspicious fires, because there's something going on, and somebody needs to be talking about it and trying to figure out why and what's possibly going on. Yeah, I agree, Digital. I didn't like the fact that McClellan made it sound like that it was justice for not releasing it. I mean, to me, that's just ridiculous. And yeah, if the 911 call is released, it's going to put certain people in danger. Wonder who that would be. I do know that the reporter who tried to get the 911 call released is not buying what law enforcement's saying. I know that. But yeah, I do agree that it is about time that these fires and especially Flora and the girls start getting a lot more coverage. Pam, thank you so much. There are other people talking about Flora. One of my absolute favorite YouTubers did Flora not too long ago. Hold on a second. And I'm looking something else up. Hold on one moment. I don't know why everything is so slow tonight, but it seems to be. Everything's just running really low, slow. Incognito Society, she did a whole thing on Flora, which was wonderful. She did a really good job on Flora. I believe that, who else has done Flora? I know that Sleuth Intuition has talked about Flora, but I know that I know Anthony Greeno put out some really good stuff on Flora, but I know there's somebody else recently that did a thing on Flora, and I'm trying to think of who it is. But I do appreciate that. I know that there's more content out there on Flora. It's just you kind of got to look for it, sadly. But Incognito is wonderful. And Mel Cold Truth, if she's still here, I don't know if she's actually done Mel from Cold Truth. I don't know if she's done Flora, but I know she's talked about it on her channel as well. And if you guys want to see a really good channel, you should definitely go over and check Mel out at Cold Truth, because she's got a really good channel. And yeah, I think it is True Crime Design did something. I've heard that. Yes, Cop Facts. Sorry, how could I forget Perry? Cop Facts did a whole section on, on Flora. And so I know some people have touched on it. I'd like to see more people talk about Flora in general, and also some of these other suspicious fires that are going on in the area, because something is not right. And I do apologize. I think it may have been Lynn who sent me those emails back a couple months ago about Stephanie, and I didn't delve into it deep enough. Thank you, Pam. Thank you. Okay, it's fine, Mel. So you have it. It's no problem at all. Totally and absolutely understand. But yeah, I just it just breaks my heart. Like I said, you guys, these are children that are dying in these fires, and it's bad enough if it's adults, but when it's children, and we're talking little children, babies, it's just heartbreaking. And I just think that more people need to be talking about it. And when I say more people, not just us on YouTube, not just people on Twitter or people on Reddit, we need to have the press. We need to be pressing the press. These guys need to be covering this stuff. We need to get investigative reporters out here to figure out why the heck this stuff's not being talked about in the media more, to put pressure on the task force or whoever the investigators are on Flora. I would really like to know how many investigators are investigating the Flora fire. I want to say probably less than what is investigating Delphi. How much do you want to bet on that? What was I going to say? Let's see. Sorry, guys, just give me a second. I'm going to take a drink here. Just give me a minute to get some water. The one thing I wanted to talk about too was there was an interesting thing brought up in the Carroll County Comment back on April 29th of 2020. Debbie Lowe wrote she's a staff writer for the Comment. She wrote a article called "Lots of Tips, No Arrest in the 2017 double homicide in Delphi. Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby told the Comment Monday roughly 40,000 tips have been received in the investigation into the homicides of Abigail Williams and Liberty German on February 13, 2017. Lesenby reported that roughly 9,000 tips were received in 2019 and approximately 3,000 have been received this year. Libby took a video on her cell phone of someone walking on the bridge, which is believed to be the perpetrator or one of the perpetrators of the crimes. Community members and others across the nation have become interested in this investigation to find the murderer or murderers, and theories run rampant on social media. Lesenby advised there is DNA from the crime scene, but refused to divulge from where it originated. He said there is suggestive evidence of fingerprints found at the crime scene. This is not simple, the sheriff said. This is not television. DNA can come from all sorts of places, and fingerprints can be smudged and hard to identify. Lesenby said from the evidence found in the area, the victims were killed on the same property on which their bodies were found, near the Monon High Bridge and the Deer Creek on February 14, 2017. He said the Deer Creek runs east and west, and the High Bridge Trail runs north and south. The bodies of the girls were found north of the creek and east of the trail. Lesenby stated that the investigation is not stalled, and it has not been determined if there was one or more perpetrators. We go back and forth on that, he said. The sheriff speculated that a perpetrator has probably been interviewed by investigators about the crime, but was not immediately recognized as an offender. He said he still believes a local or locals committed these crimes. Lesenby said whoever did this knew the lay of the land. He said when an arrest is made, which he believes will happen, community members will likely be shocked at the identity of those arrested. He said he believes the perpetrator will likely be someone who is fairly well known within the community. Mistakes have been made early on in the rush to get a resolution to this, Lesenby said. It could be that just the right question was not asked or a nerve was not touched by a question to help us figure out who did this. The sheriff said evidence is being revisited to determine if there are more leads than were first thought. Criticism has been leveled against Lesenby because the search was called off Monday night, February 13th, and the girls had not been found. This is a Carroll County investigation, Lesenby stated. The investigatory team made the decision to stop searching on Monday night, but that doesn't mean everyone stopped searching. There were volunteers out all night continuing to look for the girls. The sheriff indicated the two sketches, which varied greatly from each other, were supplied by two different people near the scene on Monday, February 13th. Both images are of persons of interest in the investigation. Sheriff Lesenby said further information and facts about this case has not been released because investigators believe that by doing so, the case against the accused will become weaker. Lesenby said polygraphs have been administered on some who have been interviewed. However, no information about the polygraphs or who was polygraphed is being released because investigators want to protect the integrity of the information collected for prosecution. The sheriff acknowledged that some who have called the local tip line have been unsatisfied with the reception they received. He encouraged those with possible information about the murders to email their tip to Abby and Libby Tip at caicossheriff.com or contact the Federal Bureau of Investigation tip line at Delphi Homicide Tip Line at 844-459-5786. If people have not heard information from an investigator or released by police, they can assume that that information is not true, Lesenby concluded. Now, I thought that that Carroll County Comet article tells us a ton. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I thought it tells us a lot. And remember, this was he was interviewed back in April of 2020. And that was just 2 years ago. And to me, and I'm going to drop the link so you guys can read it for yourself. But here's the link to the Carroll County Comet article that I just read to you so that you guys can take a look at it. But I'm here to tell you that I thought that there was more answered in that article than we have seen in 5 years. He definitely tells us that there is suggestive evidence of fingerprints found at the crime scene. He tells us there is definitely DNA from the crime scene. And he also tells us that it's not simple, that this is not television. You know, DNA can come from all sorts of places, and fingerprints can be smudged and hard to identify. Just because you have DNA doesn't mean it's a slam dunk. Just because you have fingerprints doesn't mean it's a slam dunk. From the evidence that they found in the area, the victims were killed on the same property on which their bodies were found. So they were not taken somewhere else and killed and then brought back and moved, as some have speculated out there. That didn't happen. We have to go with what law enforcement is telling us. We have to listen to the facts, and those are the facts right there. And he explained that to where the girls were found. He also told us that the investigation is not stalled. They are continuing to get more information and work it. He also told us that they have not been able to determine if there was one or more perpetrators, and that they go back and forth on that. Don't you know how that feels? Because how many of us go back and forth on some of the ideas that we have about this case, and how we've done that over 5 years? You know, how many of us have done that, where we think one thing and then a week later we think something else. We go back and forth. So even law enforcement is doing that. And when you have multiple agencies or a multiple agency task force, you're going to have that happen, because we always are not going to agree. We all know that because of just in our little community here on YouTube, we don't always agree, but we're respectful when we disagree, correct? We want to remain respectful to one another when we disagree with things. They do believe they've interviewed him, but that they did not originally recognize him as an offender. And so to me, that is one of the things that is the biggest thing he could have said in this interview for me, because it goes back to what happened in the early days of 2017. They interviewed somebody that they didn't think was recognizable as an offender. Could it have been the Kleins? Sure. Could it have been somebody else that was at the trails? Sure. Somebody that they interviewed and talked to was not immediately recognized as an offender. He definitely believes they're local. He believes that that it was one person or locals that committed the crime, because they absolutely knew the lay of the land. And we all know, by everyone that we've seen out there at the trails, at the bridge, where this is located, you would have to know. You would just have to know. And especially back then, we're going on 5.5 years ago. This was before the trail was redone. and it was not a direct walk to the bridge. You kind of had to jut off the trail and kind of go through the woods and around, and then you came out by the bridge. So it was not an easy, let's just walk to the bridge walk like it is now. He doesn't believe the right question was asked when they were interrogating this person. So whoever this person was that he's talking about, they just didn't ask the right question of them. That may have struck a nerve or caused this person to put the hairs up on the back of their neck, or a red flag or something. He definitely admits that mistakes have been made early on in the rush to get a resolution to this. Remember, what did they tell us when they were at the crime scene? The first thing they all thought, the FBI thought it, the Indiana State Police thought it, the prosecutor thought it, and the local Delphi police thought it in the sheriff's office, that this crime would be solved within days. So there was something at that crime scene that led them to believe that this was going to be solved quickly. And that was their rush to get a resolution. And he believes that whatever that was may have caused them to miss it, to miss something. They are revisiting evidence to determine if there are more leads than when they first thought. So I think they're going back. If you remember when they had the 2019 press conference, Doug Carter said, we have to go back to the beginning. We've been on the wrong path for 2 years, and now we're going to start down the correct path. So they have to go back to the beginning and look at every piece of evidence and every interview and every canvassing thing that they got from the public to see what they may have missed. And, he talked about the criticism. In this particular interview, he didn't admit that he was wrong in calling off the search, but he has since done that was very wrong of him to do that. And it's something that he will always hold himself accountable and responsible for. And this is the other thing that I found interesting. He indicates that the two sketches, which varied greatly from each other, as we both know, Old Bridge Guy, Young Bridge Guy, were supplied by two different people near the scene on Monday, February 13th. So, Old Bridge Guy sketch came from somebody near the scene on Monday the 13th, and Young Bridge Guy sketch came the same way. So this was not something that was technology over time or all the other things that we've heard. This is what he's told us. He just told us. And both images are of persons of interest in the investigation. So all those rumors out there that people are spewing about that Old Bridge Guy was a RSO who they found out he wasn't had anything to do with it, and they dismissed it, is not true. That has been debunked by this article. That is not true. They are still looking at both images as being persons of interest in this investigation, which I think is extremely telling when we go back to what we know now and we're talking about the Kleins. Keep all of that information in your back of your minds on who looks like what sketch, and all of that information. He also talked about why they won't release further information, because they believe in doing so that the case against the accuser or the accused, would become weaker. I think that's huge. We've been talking about that for months. Talked about the fact that, yes, polygraphs have been given in this case, a number of them. Kelsey talks about being polygraphed. Other members of her family have been polygraphed. And I thought it was interesting when he said that some who have called the local tip line have been unsatisfied with the reception they received. And I'm not sure what he meant by that, but don't be discouraged, you guys. If you know something or have any kind of information, or you think you know something that might be beneficial to this case, don't second guess yourself. Don't talk yourself out of turning that information over, whether it be to the FBI directly. If you don't trust local law enforcement, then send it to the FBI. Bypass them. I mean, they're telling you, you don't have to give it to us. Contact the FBI. And he concludes it by saying, if people have not heard information directly from an investigator or released by police, they can assume the information is not true. And I'm just here to say that that's how I feel. And it's okay to speculate on things that we don't know, but we have to remember that that's what we're doing, that we're speculating, and we can't talk like it's the truth, and we can't talk like we have known facts when we don't. We have to make it clear that what we're talking about is things that are not proven or have never been supplied by law enforcement. So let's go back here and look. That's pretty much all I had for you guys tonight, but I want to look back at some of the comments that I've been missing. So hang on and let me go back up here a little bit. And SD said, those that know about this crime also know that going to local law enforcement is not the way to go. Go to the FBI. Alicia says, personally, I think Tobe wants to say more, but isn't allowed to. His two-part Q&A is very insightful as well. Yeah, his two-part Q&A was very, very insightful. Yeah, they do, but most of the time they don't. They can very well lie, but most of the time they're not. And their lies are not bold, huge, conspiracy kind of lies. They're little things that they might leave out or add. But no, I don't believe that they lie to a huge degree. I just don't. Not in something like this, not in a case like this with the 2 murdered children. Now, does that mean that there can't possibly be a bad egg out there? Sure. Most definitely, we could have a corrupt law enforcement officer out there somewhere. But when you stop and think about talking about conspiracy theories and law enforcement, you would have to have so many people involved for it to work. It just doesn't seem plausible to me. Possible? Maybe. But definitely not probable. That's just how I feel about that, Sinclair. Toy says, the problem is after over 4 years of them telling us social media is not involved, they suddenly say, exactly. And there's got to be a reason for that, though. And I go back to what Tobe said in the very beginning here, and when we were going over the article, is that they rushed to judgment. And I don't think that they believed that social media was involved. That was one of the mistakes that they made. So they overlooked that, and they didn't believe it. Corgi says, Kristin, statistically, this is very, very crazy. I hope you're sounding the alarm facilitates investigation into the possibility of a serial arsonist. So do I, Corgi Mama. I hope so. I'm so hope so. I'm just flabbergasted at what I'm finding, and there's more out there. This is not an exhaustive list. There are more fires to look at. Yeah, I wondered about that too, but I think the reason, Digital, that he said same property is because he wanted everybody to know that it was right there. It didn't happen I don't think it happened across the creek. Don't think it happened in the creek. I think it happened right where they were, is where it happened. And I think that's what he was trying to say. So let's see. Yeah, it could be a witness or a volunteer. It could be anybody that was out there that day. Remember, anybody that came to volunteer had to sign up. They had to give their name, their address, who they were. Of course, I don't know if they vetted those people. Probably not. And I'm thinking, it could be anybody. What if Bridge Guy was out there as a volunteer, but gave a fake name or whatever? That has also come to mind to me, as if he was there or stayed around or stuck around. I know I've heard many people say they did not believe that he was there, that he hightailed it out of there and got away. But that's what common sense tells us. But I don't necessarily believe that you can look at this type of a murder in a common sense kind of fashion, because it's not common sense to murder two young girls, or anyone for that matter. Alicia says she believes Is or Riley also allude to the fact that they have most likely interviewed him as well. Yes, they did. And so it leads me to believe that this is somebody they know. And it came back up on their radar probably in 2019. And they were able to figure it out, and they know who he is. And now they have to go about trying to either break an alibi or figure out what it is that they have to do to build the case against him. Yeah, I've wondered about that too, but Alicia, I am still not convinced in any fashion that Lee Kerr is real. I just don't. That may be something that I end up having to eat my hat on at the end of all of this, but I really don't believe right now that I'm convinced that Lee Kerr is real. Let's see. It certainly is, John. John said, this is one heck of a mystery. It certainly is. There's many layers to it, as I have said over and over. Yes, Truth Justice, he did say that. He said he should have allowed the bloodhound search dogs to come to the scene. I think they might have been able to help. And I'm sorry that did not happen. Let's see. And I agree that's very possible, Toy, that not law enforcement, powers that be, there are names that they didn't want to mess around with on a CP case, but one of those names could be the one. They just didn't investigate him. And it's very possible that that's true. If it happens to be somebody who is in the upper echelon of the community, that is anywhere involved in CSAM, or, got their hands involved in that in any way, it is going to be really hard for law enforcement and for the prosecution to want to deal with that. And they've got to figure out a way to do that without hurting the case, because it would be huge if that got out, as well as you can see why, and people will run with that. But I keep being told that the locals know, and the locals know a lot more than what they're saying, and they're afraid. And if that's true, if the locals in Delphi and in and around Delphi know, and they're afraid to talk, that tells you just how ruthless and how extremely dangerous this killer is. Because I think we all need to keep our open minds about that and realize that we do still have a killer out there who feels probably in a lot of ways as if he's won, because it's going on 5.5 years and he's still not behind bars. So in his mind, in his sick whatever mind, he feels like he's won, and he may very well be toying with police. I don't know. And Country Girl, I absolutely agree with you. She thinks it's so much bigger than we thought and is more work to be done to really solve this completely. And I agree with you. And these CSAM cases can take a long time to go through all of the documentation and all of the data and everything. So that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. If they interviewed the perpetrators but didn't recognize them as a possible POI, then think who else did law enforcement interview or talk with other than possible POI? We don't know who they talked with. That's the sad part. We don't know who they interviewed. We don't know who they talked to. There has been speculation as to this person or that person was there that day, but we don't know. Law enforcement has never come out and told us who were witnesses at the bridge and at the trails that day. So we don't know. David, I'm talking about people who of power, whether it be people who are in a governmental power within the area or within that county, somebody who is upstanding in the county, who people are going to know. It's going to be somebody that everybody knows. Whether stop and think about what kind of jobs those would be, what kind of people would that be? You know what those people are. You know the kind of people in your community that you know. And that a lot of people, and especially when you're looking at really small areas, doctors, lawyers, ministers, school teachers, coaches, all kinds of people. I mean, there's just all kinds. Could be families that have lots of money and a lot of power in the communities, things like that. Alicia said she's curious if anyone who's read the Reddit Flora docs know why JD had been at the property prior and knew about the west exterior stairway. I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, I know, Sally Ann. That whole video is really crazy because it's so short, and it causes us to. I mean, I've looked at it so many times, as I'm sure a lot of you have, and that video is really hard to really figure, to me, anything out. And once you look at it so long, you can make yourself see things that aren't there. So it's there's good and bad in that as well. He's working as an attorney. He's not retired. Let's see. Melodramatic Monday says, I just can't wrap my brain around how such little has been released in this case, yet there still seems to be a bit of contradiction from law enforcement. How is that even possible? Well, again, we have different jurisdictions. We have different agencies working, and everybody sees it differently. And just like Tobe said, they go back and forth on it. They don't agree. And I think a lot of times when you have, there's a hierarchy of power, there's a push me, pull me kind of thing going on between law enforcement agencies when they get involved in cases like this. And you're going to have personalities that think they know better because they've got more experience, or they think that they have a higher ranking, such as, ISP versus county sheriffs, or federal agencies versus local agencies, and all of that. And it all comes into play. And you've got that power struggle going on, and who knows more, who's going to be the leader, who's going to take lead on this. and they don't always agree. And it can create a mess of a case when that happens. Let's see. Where are we going? And I understand why people would want to leak information. I just am really, I just really think at this point, law enforcement is doing the best job they possibly can to keep leaks from happening. It's why they got the new building last September. It's why everybody wondered why they were moving and what that could mean. I knew that it was huge. I knew that there was going to be movement in the case. I felt it so strongly back then, and we saw it. It just continued to happen from the time they got the building on, and I definitely think that could be a couple of different reasons. Maybe they got wind that there was stuff being leaked. Maybe what was happening on social media concerned them, that somebody was trying to leak information, and they realized they needed to plug that leak. So they took all of the investigation to a private area where you had to be on a need to know basis to even be in there. So, yes, one L Michelle, I do. I went back and forth with that in the beginning. I jumped on the bandwagon hot and heavy with the Kleins back in December, January, and February, and I was really thinking, man, they broke it. These are the guys. I don't think that anymore. I'm feeling more and more like I go back and forth with it. I definitely think they're involved somehow. I definitely feel that way. I'm just not sure how they're involved. If it turns out that one of them or both of them are actually involved in the actual murders, it will not surprise me. Let's put it that way. Yes, that is true. His name is Abbott, and he was the FBI special agent. Abbott is the one who was on the same case with Larry Nassar that allowed him to get away with certain stuff. And Sally says she doesn't believe law enforcement is doing their best. I think corruption and egos are definitely at play and take precedence over lives, unfortunately. Sadly, Sally, sometimes that is true. I do think the majority of law enforcement in this case is doing their best. Again, I'm not going to throw them all underneath the bus. I think it's a very hard job that they have. It's not a job that I would ever want to have to do. It's so much easier to be armchair detectives and critics and to sit back and say what they should do or shouldn't do when we're not in the midst of it. But I like the fact that Tobe owned up in this article about making mistakes. I think that takes a lot for someone to do. Most of us don't like to admit when we make mistakes. That's another part of human nature. And it's hard to own up to what we've done and made mistakes. Stop and think about it. So for them to do that is huge. And especially when it's an elected official. A sheriff is an elected official. So they're not quick to want to own up to mistakes because it can cost them an election, which means their job. And, so you have to look at who are the elected officials surrounding this case. We're looking at prosecutors. We're looking at special prosecutors are appointed. Judges are elected. Circuit judges and things like that. So you have to put your mind into that kind of a frame when you're thinking about this kind of stuff. And it's hard. And I totally understand that. I think that it's so easy for us to want to throw law enforcement completely under the bus here, but I don't think we should. I think we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I do appreciate all of you guys. Hey, Michelle, so good to see you. Alicia says the profile is for sure involved. I can't get over him saying, "Oh my God, what happened? Why would you jump to, oh my God," then saying he was supposed to meet her is way too much, but I don't think it's Kagan or Tony. Agreed. That bothers me, has always bothered me. The fact that when Libby's friend told him, "Have you heard about Libby?" And he's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" I mean, why would that be your first, why would that be the first thing that you would jump to? I agree with you on that. And the fact that he had openly admitted that they were supposed to meet up. So I love you all. I'm so glad that you guys came tonight. I'm so sorry that I've been absent. I actually was able to talk longer than I thought, and I did it without coughing. My voice I hope didn't crack too badly. But you guys are wonderful, and I hope you got something out of tonight's show. I hope, beyond hope, that any takeaways from this is you will start your own little investigating and looking into some of these fires, and go to Reddit. If you're not a member, become a member. It's free. You don't have to pay anything, and go get involved in some of these, especially the new Reddit sub on Flora, and give them, your support. Help grow the community so that more people will come there, and we can talk about this and have this conversation and keep it out there, because sadly, I don't feel that Flora is being worked, and I don't feel that it's being investigated properly. I just don't. And I think that they, in their mind, have tunnel vision and are looking at one direction only in that case. And I do believe corruption could very well be the reason of it in that case. I really do. And that's what bothers me most about Flora. I agree, Sally Ann. You know what? I have this thing that I have access to on YouTube as a creator. I will actually put that in as a suggestion because I like that too. We need to have a button that we can just quickly like someone's comment so that I think it would be super nice to be able to do that as well. But yeah, you guys, I really thank everybody. Sally Ann, that question constantly comes up about Evansdale and Zion. And I live in Illinois, and Zion is something that I'm very, very familiar with. And I don't honestly believe the cases are connected. I do think that we need to have more eyes on those cases. I feel that Elizabeth and Lyric deserve justice like everybody else. Their case has gone on too long. But the sad thing about some of these cases, and especially when they're the kind of case where you're abducted, no one sees it happen, very little physical evidence is left behind. In a time when you're dealing with small children who don't have ways to help, like Libby did. She took a video and got the voice of her killer. It makes it very, very difficult to solve these crimes. I think a lot of these crimes, it's just really hard. Where do you begin? Who do you even look at? And it makes it easier for these guys to get away with this kind of stuff. But I definitely think that it is possible. I just don't think that it's probable. I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think they're connected. But if they were, wouldn't it be wonderful? Because then when we do catch the perpetrator, we would get all these cases solved. So that would be a blessing. So, and it definitely is, in my heart, one of the things that bothers me so bad. And I know people don't want to talk about it, but there is a history in Indiana of racism. It cannot be denied. Um, it's historic. It's post Civil War, pre Civil Rights. Um, you look at some of these small communities and the religious congregations and the political discourse, race relations, gender relations, all of it. And there is some really big red flags into some of this stuff. And you can't just overlook it. It's a conversation that has to be had, even though people don't want to have it, because it's such a hard conversation to have. But those hard conversations is what can bring about change, and which can bring about people changing in their heart, I guess is what I want to say. But look into the sundown towns in Indiana. You will be eye-opening to find out the counties that are involved in that. Carroll County is one of them, and so is White. But yes, you need to check that out. There is also some really big organizations in that area and that region of Indiana that are white supremacists and how do I want to put it? Just serious problems with race. Yes, Melodramatic Monday, they certainly do. So all of it plays a part. And when we're looking at these cases, we have to talk about it. Even with Delphi and the murders, people have been bringing up Odinism and those kinds of things. If you aren't familiar with what this stuff is, you need to try and educate yourself a little bit and go out and read about it, because it's out there. You just have to Google it and find it. I may put together a live sometime in the near future, and we can talk about Odinism and some of the organizations that I'm talking about, because they're out there and a lot of people look up to them and think the organizations are great, but there's a history of racism behind them. The Masons is one of them. Some of these, the Moose Lodge, the Moose are big in Indiana. And these organizations were all founded on racism. So it's something to think about. But anyway, I digressed and I'm getting off onto something else here. So I don't want to do that to you guys. But anyway, thank you so much. Make sure that you like and subscribe and hit the bell so that you can be notified when I do go live or when I drop a new video. I do have membership on my channel. Feel free to join. Some of my members are going to get to have some content that won't be available right away to my subscribers, but they'll get first dibs on it and then it'll become available. I'll never do anything that is just members only where my subscribers never get to see it. I don't feel that that's fair, but I will let them see it a few days or whatever beforehand. So I think one of the things that I may be doing here soon is I'm trying to we're going to have a little live session where I have Real Gone Gonzo on my show and Tech Death, and they're going to play for us and do a little jam session. And I thought that would be kind of fun to just take the immense emotion that we have around these cases and kind of give us a little a little night off with some good music and some good chat. So I'm looking forward to that soon. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. But I appreciate all of you guys coming tonight, and I will talk to you all soon. I hope you all stay safe and have a great rest of your weekend. And I plan on seeing you guys all again on Tuesday. Thank you for coming, and have a great evening, everyone.